A field of birds in the San Jacinto River Valley of Southern California. Hidden here are a series of questions that face us all every day. How far should we go to rescue the last of a species? And whose decision is it to let a unique form of life disappear forever?
My explanation for why are they here: number one, the height of the wheat. It's unusually tall, and their native nesting substrate is cattail or tule bulrush marsh. So it sort of reminds them of that habitat because it's very vertical, it's relatively tall. The other thing is, because of the dairy, they've got an infinite amount of vegetable food to eat.
Not long ago, even with a large nature preserve right nearby, an unfortunate series of conditions led one of the world's most important colonies of an unusual blackbird to converge here in this single field.
We discovered that tricolored blackbirds were attempting to nest in a dairy wheat field just about 5 miles east of the wildlife area.
Any other time of year, this would have posed no problems. However, in this instance, the blackbird's choice of nesting sites had fatal implications.
And we contacted the dairy owner, Mr. Spikesma, and he indicated that in the weeks ahead he would need to harvest his crop. The problem was, if he did do that, we would lose that breeding colony.
John Spikesma, owner of Ramona Farms Dairy, was about to harvest this winter wheat and ready the field for summer corn for his cows. Spikesma's schedule, however, conflicted with that of his new tenants.
The risk here is that this colony of tricolored blackbirds could get, in a sense, harvested. Essentially, that means the wheat would be cut, the adult birds fly off, but the young are lost for this year.
It would be 27 days before the infant tricolors in the wheat would be mature enough to take flight and leave the field. This would have them here well after Spikesma's harvest date. Thousands of these unusual birds were about to be lost.
The loss of this year's reproductive effort for tricolored blackbirds would be a very significant loss.
Negotiations were hastily begun between Audubon, California, and the owner of Ramona Farms Dairy. Within days, Ramona Farms agreed to postpone the harvesting of a 13-acre plot of wheat so that the nesting birds could rear their young to maturity in return for the purchase of the crop by Audubon. In effect, they would harvest around the birds. Some would be lost, most would be saved.
What we've agreed to is to cut the wheat outside of the colony. We identified a 13-acre area that encompasses the colony, and Tom Pollock of Fish and Game drew a pretty careful map, came up with a number of landmarks so that he could work with the farm manager to ensure that if we had an agreement, which we now do, that they would cut on that boundary, and that's exactly what they've done here. So this white post going west marks one of the boundaries here, and you can see where the field of wheat, where the colony is, still stands. A tremendous number of birds remain. They haven't been bothered by the fact that essentially just outside this line, the wheat has already been harvested.
Disaster this time was averted at the last minute through talk, understanding, and money.
Part of what Audubon's job to do is to provide hope for the future, that California is an extraordinary state and that we need to restore the natural resources that made this state such an attractive place in the years to come for our kids and for our grandkids.
But expanding development virtually ensures this scene will happen again.
So we've got, I don't know, 34, 35 million people in California. We're going to grow to 46 million people, I think, in the next 10 to 15 years. And the Inland Empire of Riverside and San Bernardino counties is one of the 3 biggest growth areas in the state of California. And unless we make a proactive effort to protect, it's going to just be lost.
The birds were saved this year, but what happens in the years to follow? Someday, very soon, Ramona Farms and its neighbors could well be bulldozed, and John Spikesma's rescuing field will be gone.
And we've got a new bond act coming up in November that the voters will be asked to pass. And if they pass it, we'll have about $5.6 billion going into conservation and restoration projects in the state of California. And this could be one of the areas, rather than this farmer optioning his property to a housing development, it could be going to a conservation purpose.
Is it acceptable for a small species like the tricolored blackbird to simply vanish? What about 2 such species, or 3? When do we decide the world just won't be the same without them? These are the questions looming here in a farmer's field, out in a valley in Southern California, but as it turns out, not that far away for many of us.